Super Smash Brothers. You've played it, you love it, and at the very least, you at least have probably heard of it, I would hope. Nowadays, there are tons of platform fighters that are trying to copy the essence and the love of Smash. But personally, I don't think there's going to be a single one that can top Smash as the king of platform fighters. I think that title's always going to be held by them. What other game franchise is going to allow us to take our favorite family-friendly Nintendo characters and have them beat the ever-living snot out of each other? Nothing's gonna allow that to happen. But today, I'm not here to argue who the best Smash character is or who has the best Final Smash. There have been plenty of people a lot more qualified to do that have already done that aren't me. I'm here on much more important business that we need to figure out today. We're gonna figure out which Smash characters on the roster can drive. Hear me out, it's more interesting than you think. I saw Shay Fearless Productions video that he did trying to uncover how many Smash characters from the roster had eaten pizza before. It's right here. I'll put it in the description. You can go check out his video. That got me the idea that sparked all of this. But the more I thought about it and the more I actually looked into it, it got a lot more interesting than I originally anticipated. And so now here we are, and I've wasted like hours of my life researching all of this, and now I'm gonna present it for you guys to look at and waste your lives watching. All right, just to lay like a quick ground rule, when I say driving, I'm not talking spaceships and tanks and stuff like that. I'm talking like Honda Civics and Ford F-150s. You go to get a driver's license and you can drive that. That's what we're talking about here today. Also, bear with me because I am sick. My voice is raspy and sounds weird, so I apologize, but hopefully that gets figured out. I've been sick for like a week and I don't know what to do anymore, and I can't put this off anymore. I want to get the video made, so here we go. First off, we're gonna get rid of the obvious ones out the gate, the Mario Kart characters. Every Nintendo character that is in Smash has been included in Mario Kart in one way or another at some point. Mario, Donkey Kong, Yoshi, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Bowser, Wario, Diddy Kong, and Bowser Jr. So they've driven. The other good thing about Mario Kart is it allows us to cross off a lot of like really random characters on the roster that we probably wouldn't see otherwise. People like Dr. Mario, who was put in Mario Kart Tour, Pac-Man, who's in all of the Mario Kart arcade games, plus his own racing game, Pac-Man World Rally, Link, Villager, Inkling, and Isabelle, who were all included as DLC in Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Rob, who literally has no business being in a Mario Kart game, but at some point during Mario Kart DS's development, the devs were just like, wouldn't it be funny if we put Rob in? They were right. It was kind of funny. I kind of dig the choice there. And the Mii Fighters. I don't know if the Mii Fighters and the Miis from Mario Kart are the same thing, but they are in my head. So I'm going to go ahead and put them here because if I don't say they can drive here, I don't think I can say they drive anywhere. Now, some of you may have been very observant or play way too much Mario Kart. Please play anything else and step outside. But you may have realized that I forgot Rosalina and Luma when I initially listed off the Mario Kart characters. In Smash, she's labeled as Rosalina and Luma. Rosalina, clearly able to drive. We see her touching the wheel. We see her driving around during Mario Kart. There's no question there. Luma has never been seen driving. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say that Rosalina and Luma get like half credit, half a point because Rosalina can drive, losing half a point because Luma just kind of follows her around and stalks her the whole time, which is kind of creepy the more that I think about it. Also, for the record, for anybody that's like, oh, it's Mario Kart. That's not a car or a truck, it's a cart. First off, shut up, I hate you. Second off, look at these options. I don't think these are carts. These look like these are cars. And if this isn't convincing enough for you, they drive a Mercedes-Benz in Mario Kart 8. I don't know what other proof you need. Not to mention that the best competitive vehicle for like online is the teddy bear thing that you can like rent for 10 bucks in the mall that goes like 2 miles per hour, except in this game it's going 200 miles per hour. So I think it's safe to assume that they can drive. Also, almost forgot, I'm gonna go ahead and just throw Sonic here too. He has his own racing game. It's not that great and nobody really cares about it, but he has one, and if I don't put him here, I feel like it's weird to put him somewhere else. All right, now with all the Mario Kart stuff out of the way, from here on out, I'm just kind of gonna go down the list in order and say if they can drive or not and keep things fairly organized for myself. Now, while I'm sure that Samus is an amazing pilot and seeing all the gunships and stuff that she's flown, I mean, I went to the wiki and there are a lot more ships than I initially realized. It's safe to say she's a great pilot. However, not a single one of those vehicles is a land vehicle. So, she can't drive. Gonna go ahead and lump Dark Samus in here too, who hasn't actually driven or flown anything for that matter. And I'm also bringing Zero Suit Samus all the way down here with them because it's Zero Suit Samus. It's literally Samus, but without the suit, so she can't drive either. They're the same person. Okay, so not only has Kirby been able to drive like the Wheelie Rider and the Blaze Wheelie, in Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, this pink glob literally wraps himself around a car and starts driving it around the map. I don't know the logistics behind that or how that's even possible, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say that yes, that counts. He can drive. So at first I kind of like automatically wrote off Fox because it's Star Fox. His whole bit is flying around in spaceships. But it turns out that in Star Fox Zero, there's a random section where he can drive in this thing called the Roadmaster. I guess he can drive too, as well as fly. So good for him. Okay, so I know I just said that I was just gonna go in order for the rest of the characters, but I'm already gonna break that here. Pikachu came up and it's all the Pokemon. So we all kind of know the outcome here. I'm just gonna rapid fire through them because obviously none of them are able to drive. Right? Wrong! See, as it turns out, back in 2005, Nintendo released a random spin-off PC game known as, what was it called? Pokemon Team Turbo. This game has various different mini games just like thrown into it, things like dominoes and tic-tac-toe. But one of the games is a racing game where from a selection of 20 different Pokemon, you can just ride around in these little like motorized Pokeball motorcycle things. And out of the roster, 2 people on the Smash roster were there, Pikachu and Squirtle. So both of them can drive. That's there we go. I also find it kind of funny that also on the roster are Bulbasaur, Venusaur, Charmander, Charmeleon. But for some reason, they just decided to leave out both Ivysaur and Charizard for no good reason at all. They just skipped out on those 2 and said, screw you guys. Unfortunately though, now we kind of just go back to what you expect. None of the other Pokemon have been able to drive in any way, shape, or form. Jigglypuff, Pichu, Mewtwo, Lucario, Greninja, and Incineroar. So all these guys, put him on the can't drive list. Next up, we have Ness, who can't drive. I don't know what you expected. He's a 12-year-old kid. However, I think he does take it to heart because in his game, there are these enemies called Psycho Cars, and he just beats the ever-living snot out of a bunch of them. Now, at first, Captain Falcon looks like an obvious yes. However, there is one glaring issue. Let's take a look at his little blue Falcon right here. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? You see this? Exactly, you don't. There's no wheels under here. This thing's flying. This thing's flying. Get this fraud out of here, dude. Ice climbers can't drive. This is literally all they do in their game, so no shocker there. Now, while her knight in shining armor is out racing with Mario and her friends, Zelda, unfortunately, has never had the opportunity to drive, so I feel bad for her a little bit. Also, bringing Sheik here too, because Sheik is literally just Zelda except a ninja. So both of them can't drive. Now, I was really bummed when I found this out, but Fox has access to the Roadmaster and he can just drive it around on his whim. But Falco doesn't. Like, Falco's his right-hand man. He's always there with Fox, and yet for some reason he's not allowed to drive the Roadmaster. Falco's always been my favorite of the Star Fox line. I think it's kind of stupid that he hasn't driven the Roadmaster and therefore doesn't have a license. So I have to put him on the not driving list, and I'm not happy about it. Yes, I know. Okay, I'm doing it again. I'm breaking the rules. I'm doing all the Fire Emblem characters right now, okay? Take a guess at how many Fire Emblem characters have driven. Ready? That's right. 0. They've been stuck in the medieval times for 17 games now. So Marth, Lucina, Roy, Chrom, Ike, Robin, Corrin, Byleth. None of them can drive. Just gonna get that out of here. Okay, now that was the last time I'm breaking the rule. I promise. Until I break it again, then I don't promise anymore. But for now, I promise. Young Link. He's just Link, but younger, less cool, and can't drive. There's really not much to say on him. Ganondorf also can't drive, and I know that has to make him furious. Just put yourself in Ganondorf's shoes for a moment. In Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, he's up there, he's ready for world domination, and all of a sudden, in storms this little elf boy who just starts spawning objects on the ground, fuses them together, and now all of a sudden in like 3 seconds he has a hover bike or like a bomber plane or a truck that he can drive around. In the meantime, you're just stuck and can't do that, and you live in the same world and are like 10 times more powerful than this guy. I would be so angry if I was Ganondorf. Mr. Game & Watch finally gets us back on the list of characters that can actually drive. In fact, in Smash, he has his own stage that showcases his fire truck. Ambulance? I don't really know which one it is. Yeah, he can drive, so give the man his license. Okay, so I was this close to just giving up and saying that Meta Knight just can't drive. That was until I discovered Kirby Right Back at You, which began airing episodes in 2001. Oh my goodness, this show is a fever dream. In episode 35 and 36, they're in something called the Kirby Derby, which features a bunch of different Kirby characters all racing each other in their own custom cars. And during the race, we get to see Meta Knight driving his car. If you were wondering how good Meta Knight was at driving, just roll the clip. Okay, well, nobody said they had to be good at driving. They just had to be capable of driving. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. Pit was one of the last people I thought would be able to drive on this list. But as it turns out, in Kid Icarus Uprising, he actually has access to a vehicle called the Exo Tank, which despite its name is not a tank. It's a motorcycle that can like shoot lasers out of it. But Dark Pit, he can't use the Exo Tank. So Pit can drive and Dark Pit cannot drive. I guess you learn something new every day, and today I learned that Pit can perform a pit maneuver. Okay, next one. Okay, so it took me an embarrassing amount of time to figure out if Snake could actually drive or not. I figured he could, okay? I assumed that Snake would be able to drive. Here's footage of him driving around in a Jeep. Okay, so he can drive. It just took me way longer than I'd like to admit to figure that out. But he's supposed to be like the greatest soldier of all time. If he couldn't drive, then I think we would have a big plot issue at hand. Just like Ness, our other Earthbound protagonist, Lucas, cannot drive. Still 12. Not really too much else to say, except that I've always liked Lucas more than Ness because he has the silly little worm guy. Now, while I talked about the Kirby TV show and how they had the Kirby Derby and all the different casts, surprisingly, King DDD is not one of those that can drive. He's in the race, But the whole time, he's just having some like little snail guy drive the car for him. This little snail guy like kind of does everything for him because he drives this car for him. He also drives this tank for him, which is also from the Kirby TV show. But the more I thought about it, the more it makes sense. King Dedede, he's royalty. He doesn't have time for all of this peasant crap. He's got other people to do it for him. He's got kingly duties and stuff to do. Yet again, we have another great pilot who does not have the capabilities of driving in Olimar. He has his rocket ship, which is pretty cool. He doesn't have any land vehicles, unfortunately. I think it would be kind of cool if he could command the Pikmin to turn into like some sort of car and then drive around like that. I don't know logically how that would work, but Nintendo can figure that out. That's a them problem. All right, I leave that to the devs. I just give them the good ideas. Toon Link is surprisingly the only character out of all of the Legend of Zelda characters that knows how to drive a train. So that's kind of neat, I guess. He's still incapable of driving. He has no access to any vehicles to drive with, so. Okay, so I kind of lied earlier about Falco being my favorite Star Fox character. Falco is definitely my favorite Star Fox character that's in Star Fox's crew, but in terms of characters all time, it's gotta be Wolf. I mean, he's so cool, he looks cool, he's got cool moves, he's got cool voice lines. I love Wolf. He's the best out of the Star Fox group. One thing that he lacks though is he can't drive either. Fox still has his Roadmaster and Wolf has only flying vehicles, which is stupid. We need more Roadmasters for better characters in Star Fox. Granted, they probably won't even make another Star Fox game, so I don't know why I'm ranting. But, hey, if there is another one. Okay, so I initially had Mega Man down as unable to drive, but, like, given the nature of his games and all the sci-fi-ness and how he's literally a robot, I found that very hard to believe that he couldn't drive. So I went back and I looked into it again. And it turns out his up B, he jumps off of that dog and it's the trampoline and whatnot. Well, it turns out that same dog can just transform into an entire car. Wii Fit Trainer, yet another one that can't drive, which is a little surprising because Wii Fit Trainer is the closest we come to someone just being us. Like, she's literally just a person, but she's too busy doing like this the whole time, or this and all her other yoga poses and exercises to be driving, I guess. Another character that we have literally no evidence of driving, but probably should be able to, considering he's also just a normal human being, is Little Mac. But honestly, I think it's safe to assume that he probably just skipped all of his driver's ed courses and let himself get rocked in the skull by Mike Tyson. Even if he did want to drive, he'd probably have way too much brain damage to do that in the first place. Palutena also can't drive. That one's not surprising though, because she's literally a goddess. She has zero reason to need to fly, especially when she can teleport, and she has Pit and her other angels to just do her bidding for her in the first place. Not surprising in the slightest that Palutena's not driving. Xenoblade has literally no shortage of vehicles. Like, they have an entire plethora of things, but they all just happen to be ships or mechs of some sort, which I guess is fair. I think their whole thing is like there is no ground. It's like they're all in the sky and whatnot. I don't really know the lore of Xenoblade. All I know is that because of that, no land vehicles. I'm just gonna go ahead and lump Shulk and Pyramithra together. Both of them can't drive. Duck Hunt can't drive. It's a dog and a duck. I don't know what you expected. When we dive into the Street Fighter characters, it gets a little weird because Ryu doesn't drive. And all of the promotion and the games and everything, his whole thing is that he walks around from place to place, finding people to fight, like a wandering monk sort of deal. So Ryu himself can't drive. Now Ken drives in style. He doesn't do it in any of the games, But in the Street Fighter 2 movie, you see him driving around in a Porsche 911 Turbo with a hot chick next to him, sunglasses on, just straight up a dog, living his best life, being the most macho man I think I've ever seen. Give this man his license. Cloud is also really interesting because motorcycles, cars, spaceships, you name it, Cloud has driven it or flown it or whatever you want to call it. He's done almost any vehicle you can think of. Seth Faroth, I'm gonna go ahead and throw him in here too. He also has a motorcycle and probably other vehicles that I really didn't look too deep into because I already figured out that he could drive, so I just kind of stopped looking. Both of them can drive, which I found a little surprising. Okay, so I don't know what it is all of a sudden, but all of these latest Smash characters are just super sick motorcycle drivers. Bayonetta, who also has a motorcycle. Once again, I don't know why you need a motorcycle. You can turn into bats and fly away and you're a witch. You don't need a vehicle. But she has a motorcycle. Again, that's just like the 5th person in a row with a motorcycle. Also, Bayonetta is a dummy mommy with a motorcycle. Please let me in. I can't say this is the most shocking thing that Ridley is unable to drive, but just a personal gripe of mine, I think it's a little bit of a sin. Ridley turns into a cyborg at some point and still has no ability to like transform into any sort of vehicle. Like, imagine you're fighting Ridley and all of a sudden the dude transforms into like a spaceship or something. I need to be put on the Nintendo idea board because I'm coming up with some fire ideas. With my personal gripe out of the way, Ridley can't drive because probably he's too big, which makes a lot of logical sense. Simon and Richter are two super buff, super hot, whip-wielding men. I'm not like attracted to them or anything. They can't drive. They can't drive is what I'm trying to say. So while K. Rool is tragically unable to drive, I feel like some special props have to be given to this man or crocodile or whatever he is. He may not be driving a Lamborghini or a Ferrari anytime soon, but look at this thing, dude. Look at what he's driving. I can already hear what some of you are saying. Nathan, that's not a vehicle. That's an island. That's just an island. That's where he lives. That's what I thought too. But the wiki describes it as a warship that he drives. This thing is a moving ship. He can move this around, and it's got a giant laser that takes out other islands. I love K. Rool. I love everything about K. Rool. One of my favorite characters in gaming ever. Piranha Plant has been in the Mario franchise literally since the beginning. I mean, he was in the original Mario Bros. And he's been in Mario Kart. He's been an item, technically. He's never been playable. And so because of that, he's never driven before. I wouldn't be shocked if at some point he made it into a Mario Kart game. Although at the same time, that will probably never happen because we have PD Piranha, who's probably just gonna fill in anyways. So for Joker, I feel like I should start off by saying that I don't really know if he is 100% able to drive or not. Because the only vehicle that I could find him driving, it's when his partner cat friend just magically transforms into a van. Don't ask me how. I don't know how it works either. I don't know if it's actually Joker driving or if it's the cat moving on its own. We're just gonna look at this image here, and Joker's hands are on the steering wheel. I'm gonna say it counts. I'm gonna say that Joker's driving. Hero can't drive, but once again, he's kind of one of those characters that doesn't really need to. I mean, he's living in a world with magic carpets and like giant flying whales. Honestly, if he was choosing to use a car or drive around in a Toyota Corolla, I'd be a little bit annoyed with him. You have so many better options in your world. What are you doing? So unfortunately for Banjo and Kazooie, in both of their games, neither of them ever get behind the wheel. They go everywhere on foot, or Banjo will just hop on Kazooie's back and run around, but there's no vehicles in any of their two games. No other games besides those two. Definitely not. They would never make another game. Yeah, so they ended up trying to go for the trilogy, and in doing so created this absolute abomination of a game. I guess, you know, he does drive in that game, so it technically counts. I was just really hoping that I wouldn't have to talk about that game.
Hey.
Hey man, what's up?
You do realize that Banjo is in Diddy Kong Racing, right?
So I didn't have to talk about nuts and bolts.
No.
I could have
never had to even discuss nuts and bolts. Why would you even ever bring that up?
I could just talk.
Diddy Kong Racing, dude.
Okay.
That's all it was. Nuts and bolts was a bad game.
Okay. Thank you.
Just want to let you know.
Thank you. So out of the entire character roster, this one easily has me the most disappointed. Terry can't drive. It's crazy to me because you have Ken who's out driving Porsches. You have Bayo who doesn't need a motorcycle that's out cruising around. And yet this guy, Terry, the guy who looks like he should be driving a long handlebar chopper with some sunglasses. You're telling me this guy doesn't have the capabilities of driving? Come on, man. Like, what are we doing? Again, we have another non-driver in Min Min, but this one makes a whole lot more sense because she's got the dragon hands or the ball hands or the weird like ring hula hoop hands. I don't know how in the world she would manage to pull off driving with those. I mean, maybe she could grip the wheel with like the dragon ones since they kind of work. I don't know. So next up we have Steve, and I'm just gonna say it. No, Steve can't drive. Okay. We're not counting mods that include cars into Minecraft. We're talking about his base game. He cannot drive. Also, minecarts don't count as driving. You don't drive a minecart. They're not even like a car or a truck. They're more like a train, if anything else, which we're not counting trains for the list. So no, cry about it. I cannot find a clip of Kazuya driving to save my life. So by default, I kind of have to say that he can't drive, but I find it so hard to believe that with all of the Tekken lore and all the stuff that goes on, he has to be able to drive. There's no way that you can't. But I cannot find any evidence of him getting behind the wheel. If I'm wrong and he can, please tell me in the comments because I just can't find it. Finally, with the last fighter of the day, we have Sora, who has probably the coolest vehicle out of anybody else on this list. Well, I guess second coolest because King K. Rool has his giant island destroyer thing that he keeps around. As far as vehicles that we're counting for this list, he by far probably has the coolest. He has access to the Tron bike. I've always wanted a Tron bike. As a kid, I thought it would be so cool to have a bike that you could ride around on with the light that comes out the back. Does it kill people? Yes. But that's just a small price to pay for looking really cool when I drive down the street. So finally, after all of that research and all of the characters, we finally are able to go over our final tally. How many characters can drive in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? Out of the 88 total fighters, 37.5 of them have the capabilities of driving, while the other 50.5 do not have their license, cannot drive, maybe they're better pilots, you name it, whatever. They have no driving capabilities. Honestly, I thought that a lot more of them were going to be able to drive. I don't know why, I just thought a lot more of them had access to vehicles. So it's a little surprising for me. But now I'm gonna go take a nap for a little bit. I mean, I spent all this time researching and wasting my life to figure out if fictional fighting characters could drive. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you want more, let me know. Maybe I'll make another one. I don't know, but this was a lot of brain power. Thank you for watching.